Hello and welcome back to French Made Fun. In today's lesson, we will be learning indefinite and definite articles. Before we dive in, let's understand the meaning and significance of articles. In the English language, we have three articles, that is and, and the. And an are indefinite articles, whereas the is a definite article. Now let's understand the difference between an indefinite article and a definite article with the help of an example. A car is different from the car in the sense that when someone says they are driving the car, they are talking about a specific car. Whereas when someone says they are driving a car, it could mean any car and they are not giving special importance to that car. So the or the definite article is used to give special importance to the noun in question. That's why we say the Eiffel Tower and not an Eiffel Tower. Since there's just one Eiffel Tower, it deserves special importance. Also, even if we had to use an indefinite article before Eiffel Tower, we would say an and not a because E here is a vowel. And that's why we say an umbrella and not a umbrella. To sum up, a and an are indefinite articles, whereas the is a definite article in the English language. A and an are used before nouns that do not need special recognition or aren't one of a kind. For example, a house, a window, a television, or a book. And if the noun's starting with a vowel, then we'd say an ant, an egg, an ice cream, or an ostrich. The, on the other hand, is a definite article which is used before nouns that deserve special importance, either because they are super famous, or one of a kind, or both. For instance, we never say a Mona Lisa. We say the Mona Lisa because there's only one Mona Lisa and it's one of the most famous paintings in the world. Now that we have understood articles in English, let's understand the role articles play in the French language. Apart from helping us understand the level of importance that the noun in question has, whether it's one of a kind or one of many, articles in the French language also indicate the gender of the noun. Before we understand how that is, it's important to make a note of this one super important rule in the French language, which has been pasted on this slide since the beginning of this video. That is, every noun in French has a grammatical gender. In English, non living things such as a school, a television, a window, or a book do not have a gender. However, in French, each of these nouns would be either feminine or masculine. So, how do we decide if a non living object should be feminine or masculine in French? To be honest, there's no explanation to this. Each noun has been assigned a specific gender. School, which is called école in French, is considered feminine, whereas book, which is called livre in French, is considered masculine. Similarly, table, which is pronounced as table in French, is feminine, whereas bag, which means sac in French, is masculine. Unfortunately, there's really no way of remembering this except by hearting it, at least for starters, until you start recognizing these nouns and instinctively know what their gender is. And the reason why it's important to remember the gender of nouns in French is because it comes into play in every sentence of the language. And mind you, French people make it a point to call you out for messing up the genders of their nouns. They take their genders very seriously. And that's why you must hammer this rule in your head before you go on to learn articles. That is, every noun in French has a grammatical gender. And as discussed before, articles in French, both indefinite and definite, indicate whether a noun is masculine or feminine and whether they are one of a kind or one of many. Now that we have established that, let's understand the difference between indefinite and definite articles in French. Indefinite articles, which are called l'article indéfini, are of three kinds: a, un, and they. A is used before masculine singular nouns. Un is used before feminine singular nouns, whereas they is used before masculine or feminine plural nouns. On the other hand, definite articles, which are called l'article défini, are of three kinds: le, la, and les. Le precedes masculine singular nouns, la precedes feminine singular nouns, whereas les precedes masculine or feminine plural nouns. Let's understand each of these in detail. As discussed, indefinite articles are of three kinds: a, un, and they. A is used before masculine singular nouns, examples of which you would find on the left hand side of this table. Un livre, where livre is a masculine singular noun which means book. Un téléphone, which means a telephone. Un portable, a cell phone. A banc, a bench. A voyage, a trip. On the right hand side, we have feminine singular nouns which are preceded with un. Une table, a table. Une chaise, a chair. Une maison, a house. Une classe, a class. Une gomme, an eraser. These are some good words to remember as a beginner in French. Now let's come to they, the third indefinite article in French, which precedes plural nouns, both masculine and feminine. Before learning how they can be used in a sentence in French, note that for changing nouns from singular to plural, or and un change to they, which means some, and the noun takes an s. For instance, un livre, which as discussed above means a book in French, becomes des livres, which means some books in plural. That is, a changed to they, and livre got an s. As discussed in the previous lesson, S being a consonant and at the end of the word won't be pronounced. So it's not des livres, but des livres. Similarly, une table, which means a table, changes to des table, which means some tables. Une changed to des, and table got an S in the end. So, while learning new French words, make it a habit to write the appropriate indefinite article, that is, un, une, or they, before the noun so that you can recognize and remember their gender. Moving on to definite articles, which are used before nouns that deserve special importance or are one of a kind, there are three kinds of definite articles in French: le, la, and les. Le precedes nouns that are masculine and singular, examples of which you would find on the left hand side of this table. Le livre stands for the book. Le téléphone stands for the telephone. Le portable stands for the cell phone. Le banc stands for the bench. Le voyage stands for the trip. On the right hand side are feminine singular nouns that are preceded with la. La table, which means the table. La chaise, which means the chair. La maison, which means the house. La classe, which means the class. La gomme, which means the eraser. Last but not the least, we have les, the definite article that precedes plural nouns. Before understanding how les can be used in a sentence in French, note that for changing nouns from singular to plural, le and la become les and the noun takes an s. Le livre, which means the book in French, becomes les livres. Le becomes les and livre gets an s in the end. Le livre, les livres. But this is not all. Definite articles in French are slightly more complicated because when a singular noun starts with a vowel, we drop the E in le and the A in la and use an L apostrophe to avoid a vowel clash. Which means that a word like amour, which begins with the alphabet A, despite being feminine, won't be preceded by la, but instead L apostrophe, because the A in la has been dropped or rather replaced with an apostrophe to avoid a vowel clash. And that's why we don't say la amour, but l'amour, which means the love in French. As discussed in the first lesson, in French, there are seven vowels, that is a, e, o, u, y, and ash. Any word that begins with one of these vowels would be preceded with L apostrophe in case of definite articles. So, for instance, homme, which means man in French, won't be preceded with le, but L apostrophe, which makes it l'homme, the man. This could pose a slight difficulty in recognizing the gender of a noun because the apostrophe here could stand for both le or la. And that's why the previous slide mentioned that we need to remember the gender of nouns with the help of indefinite articles. When you're learning new words in French, make sure you write them with the indefinite article as far as possible so that the L apostrophe doesn't cause any confusion whatsoever. This brings us to the end of our lesson on articles. Please make sure that all the new words and rules that we learned today are ingrained in your mind before you move on to watching the next video. And please like, share, and subscribe to the channel before the next video drops. Au revoir.